From 2009 to 2013, Breaking Bad turned, in Vince Gilligan's own words, Mr. Chip into Scarface. A man who was once a promising part of society slowly turned from a middle-class, underappreciated suburban dad to a cunning, unapologetic emperor, as he was dazzled in his own baby blue. However, years later, after seeing this gradual change in Walter White, it seems as though the Breaking Bad audience still has only one question left. And that question is, when exactly did Walter White finally turn into Heisenberg? Hey guys, my name is DJ, and I make it no secret that Breaking Bad is my personal favorite show of all time. A series that has gradually shown the transformation of Walter White into a downright evil member of society named Heisenberg. However, just with every massive change, there has to be a single defined moment when Walter White officially becomes Heisenberg. Right? Sure, we see him gradually change throughout the series, but what is the moment in which we see him finally turn into Heisenberg? Well, I'm just gonna tell you that right now. I believe Walter White officially turned into Heisenberg the night Jane died. But before I explain that reasoning, I think it's safe to start off this conversation by basically defining what Heisenberg really is. Now, I'm not going to stand here and talk about the relationship between Walter and Heisenberg, but more specifically, I want to talk about exactly what makes Heisenberg Heisenberg. What exactly are his character traits? While we're discussing Heisenberg, I think there are four main traits to this character. Heisenberg is, by all accounts, a greedy master manipulator who is not afraid to relentlessly kill if he feels justified and who is unapologetic about his actions. These specific traits can kind of be seen throughout the entire course of the show as Walter slowly develops this darker side of his personality. But there is something we still need to point out. And that is that from basically between Season 2 and Season 4, there are glimpses of both personalities within the vessel of Walter White. For example, in the Season 3 Episode 10 episode called Fly, we already see that Walter White has almost fully transformed into Heisenberg. However, we see within the episode Walt's emotions after everything that's happened. For example, the death of Jane, in which he tries to apologize for. Yet despite that moment where we see Walt's true form come out, I think it's more or less a last gasp by Walter White than it is anything else. This last cry for help after everything he's already done, with Heisenberg slowly taking control. So I believe this glimpse is an example of Walt almost trying to break out of this Heisenbergian mindset, as opposed to Heisenberg breaking out of Walt, which we saw a lot of earlier on in the series. For example, during the episode 4 Days Out, we see Walter White basically as the dominant side of his personality until Heisenberg, Walt's dark side, tries to act out after hearing his good news about his cancer when he punches the towel dispenser in anger. It's almost like Walt is having this inner struggle with his inner demon during the scene, as both battle for Walt's conscious body. So basically within the first few seasons or so, it's definitely obvious that both sides are kind of there, with Heisenberg trying to leap out into the forefront in Walt's mind, but Walt desperately trying to fight back. However, like I said earlier, I think Jane's death in particular is the ultimate turning point, the ultimate start of this transformation for Walt. It's the final turning point for when Heisenberg basically starts to completely control Walter White. However, I guess now is kind of where I should probably start talking about why I think Jane's death is the ultimate turning point for Walt. For starters, Heisenberg basically gets to keep Jesse all to himself as a result of Jane's death. I mean, the comparison has been made before. While Walter White has his son in Walt Jr., Heisenberg has seemingly found himself a son in Jesse. Ever since Walt met Jesse in episode 1 of the show, the Heisenberg persona started to form just as a father typically changes through the introduction of his son. So Heisenberg getting his son back as a result of Jane's death is an example of that master manipulation that has become one of Heisenberg's defining traits. He knew that with Jane out of the picture, Jesse would have no reason to run away. Without Jane, Jesse really has no reason to just pick up his money and move away, which is exactly what he was planning to do prior to her death. Now, I know some of you are probably yelling at me through your computer monitor. First off, I can't hear you. Second, I understand that Walt almost tried to save Jane in that moment. However, I would argue that almost feels like Walter White's turning point in the show. In this moment, Walter goes to save Jane, yet it's Heisenberg who remains in control, letting her die in the bed. With Walter just relentlessly allowing Jane to die, Walter basically slips his grasp away from control. Yet with Walter keeping Jesse on his side, I would argue that this actually shows off another character trait by Heisenberg: his greediness. Throughout the entire show, outside of the weed that he smoked in season 1, it's become obvious that Walt's drug of choice was power. Heisenberg desperately wanted power and control over every part in his life. And throughout the entire course of the show, Heisenberg found that the only true thing he could control was Jesse. Unlike his money, unlike his business, unlike his relationship with his family, Heisenberg in the end could only control Jesse. So, if we look back at his character traits, I think it's safe to say that this moment also showcases Heisenberg's greedy nature. And the sad part about being able to keep Jesse all to himself is, I don't think Heisenberg really cares about Jane's death. Sure, we see Walter White apologizing for this death in the episode Fly, but I don't think this is Heisenberg apologizing here. I think this is just one of those rare glimpses of Walter popping out, as I was talking about earlier. However, by then, Heisenberg had easily taken over Walt's body. Walt, needing Jesse's sleeping pills, finally comes out for only a few moments. As one of Walter's last moments of humanity, he says something that Heisenberg would never say.
I'm sorry about Jane.
Outside of this moment, Heisenberg never apologizes for anything. And so, as I stated previously in this video, I think that this moment in Fly is one of those rare circumstances where Walter finally gets to say something without Heisenberg being in full control. He finally gets a chance to escape the demon inside him. Yet before Walter can say anything else, just like that, Heisenberg regains control, so Walter doesn't spill the beans about how Jane actually died. But Heisenberg, throughout everything he's done, unlike Walter White in the beginning of the show, is unapologetic about his actions. In this one moment, as Walter watches the death of Jane, Heisenberg takes that opportunity and shifts control to himself. Walter loses control, while Heisenberg takes over and finally gets back the one thing he can truly control in Jesse Pinkman. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching this video on Breaking Bad. I know it's a bit off-brand for my channel, but please let me know in the comments what you actually think of this theory. And of course, if you think I'm actually right about Walt's transformation. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and all the fixtures of a regular YouTube outro. And until next time, have a good day. Bye-bye.